So I want to give a quick overview of how you can start fly fishing if you don't have a lot of experience and you don't want to put a lot of time into it. And you just want to come down and mess around, and you can totally do it. I usually fish with nymphs. The two kinds of fly fishing you're going to do are with nymphs that are bead heads and nymphs that don't have bead heads. And here's the examples. And this is all in my beginner basics tackle selection. So here's a nymph with no bead head, he sinks. Here's a nymph with a bead head, he sinks. And this is what I'm using right now, one like this, a little bead head. And then here is when you see flies, the trout rising. This is a dry fly. When I fish dry flies, I don't fish them that much anymore, but I use this stuff called gink. It's fly floating. You just rub a little bit on here and it makes the fly float, and it'll save you a lot of time, especially if you don't have a lot of casting room. This gink will allow you to keep roll casting it out there, and it'll continue to float, because you're not going to be able to do a lot of casting when there's stuff behind you. So right now there's trees behind me and it's kind of tough to cast, but so the way that I rig this up, and if you look at my clip where I say don't overlook close to shoreline, I mean, most of the fish in Alpine lakes are cruising the shoreline, especially during the middle of the day. You know, they'll just cruise the shoreline because that's where the food is. So what I do to get started, I just have floating fly line, and we're going to be fishing a weighted nymph now. If you fish a dry fly, you just throw it out there and you let it sit until something swims along and bites it, until something rises. So I just tie a simple loop in the end of my line, then I tie a knot, that same knot that I have in my beginner basic fishing knot. It's one of the only knots I use. And then I use 4-pound test line. I just put 4-pound test. If you're fishing with dry flies, you probably want to go down to like 3-pound test. You know, you can look into buying tippet and stuff like that for fly fishing. I just use this 4-pound test because it's durable, and if I catch something big, I could just horse that thing right in. So I have about, I'd say, an 8-foot leader. I start with about an 8 or 9 foot leader. You want anything between an 8 to 10 foot leader to start with. The longer your leader is, the harder it's going to be to cast. So basically, when you're fly fishing, your finger, there's 2 ways that you're going to do this. When you're getting line out, a lot of times there'll be stuff behind you, so just cast parallel to shore to get line out like this. Watch my hands. Notice how I'm just stripping line out and I'm letting it go as I go, and it lets it get out farther and farther, okay? Once your line is out there, you always want to have this finger on the line right here, because that's going to allow you to set the hook. You can't set the hook if the line's loose and you're just doing this. It's just not going to work. See, I just keep flipping it out there. So I got my line out, and then I'm just stripping. And when I catch a fish, you'll see a lot. I just reel the fish in with using this line like this, and that's how I reel the fish in, and then I go back out. So when you're stripping the line out and you're casting, that's when the line's going to be down like this. In other words, the line's got to be here. So when you get your line out there, you want to straighten it out a little bit. And then you just strip it in, and you just got to watch your line. So I got the 4-pound test going. I got that leader. I whip it out there. So I'll cast this way so you can see a little better. If the wind's at your back, you can really cast easy. It's easy to do. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is roll casting. Because roll casting, you can sit on this rock and roll cast all day and probably catch fish and never really have to cast it out. So this is roll casting. You want to get out a little bit of line, about this much, and you're going to get the line so that the pole's almost straight up and down, and then you're just going to whip it out like that. Boom. I just cast it out 10 feet, 15 feet with just that little flick. And I'm trying to do it so I don't catch the camera. So watch this. I'm gonna roll cast. I'm gonna let the line go up. I'm raising my rod. My line's right there. And then I just flip it out. See how far that went? That's literally all you really need to do when you're in an alpine lake. Because a lot of times there's gonna be stuff all around behind you you're not gonna be able to cast. So you can just pull it up. The rod's gonna be at an angle over your head, and then you just whip it out. Oops, I just caught myself. There we go. And then another thing you can do, I cheat a lot, where I'll bring it in and I'll just whip it out. I'll just take it in and whip it right back out. I did it a lot in my Cottonwoods Lake clip because the wind was really blowing and I was muscling it out there. But roll casting is just a great way to fly fish, and it's a valuable tool. And you get it going. See how my rod is now at an angle this way, just over my head? The line is straight up and down, and then I just whip it out. Go down to the local park and practice. I just casted that out. I'm probably 12, 13 feet out into the lake. That's as far as I need to go to catch a fish. And then you can change directions when you roll cast. I'm gonna bring it in, and this time I'm throwing it straight out that way. And then, because you could sit and roll cast and fan and just do like a fan pattern like I talked about. So you can just sit on a rock like this. I'm gonna bring it in. See where my line is? Right there. Flick it out. Boom. You're out there. You want to get your fly line straight, and you want to watch your line. When your line is sinking, it's just like the jig fishing demo. Fish can nail it right away. So you always want to be ready to go. And then if I want to go back to full length casting, I can strip out line, I let it go, and I fire it out. And I'm way out there now. Now I can just really let that sink. I'm just going to let it sink and sink and sink. While it's sinking, I'm watching my line. Because all of a sudden your line can just dart out. Boom! And that means you got seconds to hit a fish. This finger has to be on this line. And then when you set a hook, you'll see in all of my fishing demos how I set a hook. And sometimes you can let that nymph sink and then just bring it in, pop it once and just let it sink. Pop it once, let it sink. Technically, nymphs are imitating something that doesn't swim. It's like a larval stage, and it's rising to the surface to turn into some kind of fly, and the fish get it when it's at that phase. But sometimes I do a hard strip. When you're stripping it in like this, it's really easy to detect a strike. So your best, I always like the parallel to shore. Like if you watch my brown trout on Rapala at Big Pine Lake #1, I was strictly just casting right along the shore. That's where all the fish were. Nothing, I was catching one fish casting out deep. Maybe you can see from behind a little better. So what I'm doing here, so I'm going to roll cast. So I'm bringing it in. I'm going to roll cast. I'm bringing it in. I got the line coming in to right about here. And then I'm just going to flip it out. See that? It went all the way out there. That's all you got to do. You can sit on a rock with some water in front of you. Don't move, because when you move, it'll scare the fish. And then all you do is just, you can put it out and let it sink. You can, I like to do a little bit more stripping when I'm doing it. So I'm doing a combination between roll casting, I'm flipping it out. You just got to get it out there. Go practice in your backyard if you have a backyard. If you live in an apartment like me, go to a local park early in the morning and just practice getting it out there. And you know, I know if someone's like a professional fly fishing guy, they're probably, jaw dropped. But as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that matters is that you get out here and you fish. I mean, we're out here at this beautiful turquoise colored lake. It is just phenomenal scenery. And you can just sit here and mess around with little trout all day, and it's fun. And that's why that's one of the reasons why I've done this channel. I want people who have never fished really to get a chance to go out there and fish. So here's a shorter version of the roll cast. Letting it in, flipping it out. Right there. See, that is the shortest version of a roll cast I can show you. There's only about 7 feet of fly line, and then I got my leader, and I'm just whipping it out. That's a roll cast right there. See that? I'm bringing it in, bringing it in, bringing it in, bringing it in. Whip it out. And look how much distance I got. That is as far as you need to cast to catch all the fish you want in this lake. You don't need to cast out any farther than that. So there's really no reason not to go mess around. Throw your flip-flops on and walk down to the lake next time. You're going to catch yourself a lot. There's going to be a lot of foul language when you're fly fishing. You always got to check what's behind you. If you don't check what's behind you, you're gonna catch a tree. There could be one stick sticking up out of the ground. Trust me, you're gonna catch it. Now see how fast? I barely have any line out. I just do a quick little flip out. See that? See that? I do a quick little flip out. I barely have any line out. I just go. I just whip it out there. Get it out there any way you can. And just after you practice for a while, you'll figure it out. Everything in fishing is that I know I'm self-taught. When you're dry fly fishing, you're gonna have that gink on it, and your fly's gonna be floating. Mark my word, you will get anything. The second you look away, you'll look back and there'll be a big ring around where your fly is because the fish will come. It's like some unwritten rule. The second you stop paying attention, that's when they hit your dry fly. So when the trout are rising all over the water, maybe you want to throw a dry fly on. I find that I just catch more fish when I fish with nymphs, because you can fish nymphs kind of like lures. You can cover more water. Ooh, there we go. Hey! Did you see that? Oh my God. Yeah, that guy, he hit that fly and I set the hook and he came flying out of the water. He was, that was funny. So there's your nymph fishing for you. There's your little brick trout. Ah! Get back in the water. So, and he was right on the shore. They're all on the shore. That's where the fish are in Alpine lakes. You always want to come up to the shore with a low profile like I demonstrate. I demonstrate a fly fishing stealth approach. And if you do those things, that's going to increase your catch. You're just going to, instead of catching 3 fish, you're going to catch 10. because you're going to catch those 5 fish that would have been scared and swam away because you took the time to crawl up. And then I'm going to roll cast one more time for you. Watch my rod. My rod gets straight up and down until it's slightly pointing behind me, and then I just thrust it forward. And that's all you got to do. My line's out there, I'm fishing. And then if I want to go this way, I just bring it straight up, slightly behind me over my head, whip it forward. Now that cast is that way. Next up, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go straight up, get my line right, my rod slightly tip behind me, go that way. You can direct the cast any way you want to cast it. You don't have to keep going in the same direction. That right there, folks, is fly fishing. See, and then I just pick the line up and just throw it out there. I mean, there's no rules here. This is Thunderdome. There's no rules in Thunderdome. The only rules in Thunderdome are there are no rules in Thunderdome. So you know, the thing you got to do is just get your line on there, get your fly on there. You know, if you're having trouble casting, shorten your leader up to 7 feet or so. I usually try to use as short a leader as I can. When I'm fishing a place I've never fished before, I go with the longer leader because I'm not sure how finicky the fish are. When there's wind chop on the water when you're fishing nymphs, it's a lot easier because they can't see your presentation so much. So that, folks, is roll casting, fly casting. Remember, if you don't got room behind you, get your line out by casting parallel to the shore. Once you get your line out, then you can start roll casting. So that's how you get that's how you get started. Start just because you can always cast parallel to the shore. So you make your first cast parallel, and then you have your line out to where your subsequent casts are roll casting. What you want to do is, once you get your line out, reel into the amount of line that you want to have, so you don't have too much line all over the place. You'll notice in a couple of my clips I'm stepping in and out of my line because I'm all tangled up in my own line. So then there's that. So then we. It looks like there's only brook trout in this lake. I mean, I don't know. I fished in this lake for about 20 minutes, so I really can't say that there's the only fish in here. That's what I heard. But I heard that same thing about down there, and down there's got nice brown, so I don't know what to say. So I hope that helps you. If you never fly fished and you've been backpacking and you want to try it, get out there and do it. Go buy a rod. That rod I got is a Max Catch fly rod. I got an old garage sale fly reel on there. I got the most inexpensive floating line they had at Bass Pro Shops. 4-pound test leader, basic knot. Look at my beginner knot. And I'm using a weighted nymph, and you'll catch fish all day. And you know, sometimes the fishing will be slower than others, but you're gonna figure it out. So good luck. I hope this helps you learn how to fly fish. Thanks for joining me on Wilderness with Amani. If you have any questions, comment, and then on the next trip I do, I'll try to fill in the gaps. All right, thank you.